Howdy, y'all. We are Group 10, and the trend that we chose to discuss today was challenges in sustainable development. Alrighty, so to kind of just give an overview, we're going to first identify the problem, the importance of the problem, connections with course concepts, and then propose solutions to the problem. So the problem we chose to identify was overutilization of resources. Essentially, this just refers to the excessive use of natural resources like water, fossil fuels, forests, soil, and minerals beyond their regeneration capacity. This can lead to depletion, environmental degradation, and an imbalance in ecosystems. So, its current impact is that overutilization of resources can lead to rising costs, operational inefficiencies, supply chain disruptions, environmental degradation, and employee burnout. And then looking forward, the future impact of this is that continued overuse risks, resource depletion, stricter regulations, unstable supply chains, higher compliance costs, and just long-term damage to brand reputation, and business sustainability. And so, essentially, the importance of the overutilization of resources and kind of understanding it is very vital to supply chain management. And so, specifically for resource scarcity and cost increases, this kind of just looks like the overuse of raw materials, which can lead to shortages, causing prices to spike and making it harder to plan and maintain production schedules. And then for operational inefficiencies, this looks like overutilized human or machine resources, which can lead to breakdowns, errors, or delay, which again just all affects that production process. And then we have sustainability pressures. So customers and stakeholders are increasingly demanding eco-conscious practices. And then overexploitation of resources undermines these sustainable goals and corporate reputation. And then lastly, we have risk to continuity and resilience. And so just over reliance on certain resources or suppliers without backups makes the supply chain very fragile. So essentially, just like one error in backup or one disruption could halt operations altogether. And so, consequences. So, looking forward, if we're not able to do anything to kind of help solve the issue of overutilization, one of the first things that can happen is just supply chain disruptions. And so, kind of what this looks like is just sudden breakdowns, labor strikes, or shortages, which can all halt production or delay deliveries and just hurt customer satisfaction overall. And then we have increased cost and lower product quality. So we get the higher costs for emergency resources, overtime labor, maintenance, or penalties. And then for the lower product cost or lower product quality, this comes from rushing or stretching resources to kind of help facilitate that overutilization of resources. And it can just lead to defects or lower quality increasing, which can increase returns and overall just damage brand trust. And then lastly, we have environmental degradation. And I would say this is like an emphasis on this for specifically just like sustainability purposes. And it's just an irreversible damage to ecosystems. And it can just hurt in the long term and make it harder to access these vital materials. And next, we'll be moving on to Jacey to discuss our connection with course concepts.
In class and throughout the semester, we've looked at several concepts that help connect supply chain management to sustainable development. And the two key examples are the triple bottom line and the idea of insourcing versus outsourcing. Both of these help us understand how companies are responding to sustainability challenges, especially around the overuse of natural resources, environmental impact, and social responsibility. So let's start with the triple bottom line, and I'll tell you a little bit more about that. This concept encourages businesses to go beyond just profit and also consider their impact on people and the planet. When supply chains overutilize resources, all three areas are affected. The planet is affected since the environment suffers through deforestation, water scarcity, pollution, or biodiversity loss. People can be affected since local communities who rely on those resources, such as water, jobs, food, can be severely impacted as well. And then profit. For the company itself, it creates risk. The overuse can drive up costs, disrupt supply, and even hurt brand reputation. So, companies that focus only on short-term profits can end up paying the price in the long term. The triple bottom line is a reminder that long-term business success depends on environmental and social sustainability too. Now, let's talk about insourcing versus outsourcing. This is often viewed as a business decision since it's about cost and efficiency, but it actually plays a big role in how companies deal with sustainability challenges. For example, when certain regions face resource overuse or environmental degradation, businesses may choose to insource, bringing production back in-house to where they have more control and oversight over their products. Others might diversify their supply chains and consider outsourcing since it has multiple suppliers in different regions to reduce pressure on just one area. Both strategies can be used to improve sustainability by reducing environmental impact, improving labor conditions, and building resistance in the supply chain. So, in both cases, we see that supply chain decisions are directly tied to sustainable development goals, whether it's through measuring impact with the triple bottom line, people, planet, and profit, or making strategic choices about insourcing and outsourcing. Businesses are being challenged to take more responsibility for the long-term effects of their actions. Now, I'm going to hand it off to Morgan to explain our proposed solutions and wrap up our presentation. Thank you.
Thanks, Jacey. Now that we've identified the challenge of overutilization, here are 6 actionable solutions our group recommends to help reduce resource strain in supply chains. First, we suggest implementing closed-loop recycling systems. This allows materials like metals, plastics, and packaging to be reused within the supply chain, significantly reducing the need for extracting new raw materials. Second, adopting a multi-sourcing strategy is essential. By working with multiple suppliers across different regions, companies can avoid overexploiting any single area, which not only protects ecosystems but also improves supply chain resilience. Third, we propose increasing the use of renewable materials like bamboo, hemp, or bioplastics. These replenish quickly and provide a sustainable alternative to limited resources such as petroleum-based plastics or rare metals. Fourth, transitioning to a circular economy design helps extend product life cycles. This means designing products not only for their initial use, but for reuse, repair, and recycling, which reduces overall material waste and slows the rate of resource depletion. Fifth, using blockchain traceability ensures that materials are ethically and sustainably sourced. It increases transparency in the supply chain and allows companies to track exactly where their resources come from. And finally, switching to solar-powered operations, especially in energy-intensive areas like manufacturing and distribution, can drastically reduce dependence on fossil fuels and lower the environmental impact. Together, these solutions align with all the course concepts that we've talked about and studied, like global sourcing, circular economy practices, and the triple bottom line. They not only protect the planet, but they also support long-term profitability and social responsibility. So, in conclusion, overutilization of resources is a critical challenge that threatens environmental stability, economic resilience, and future generations' well-being. Through global collaboration, smart sourcing strategies, and sustainable innovation, supply chains can shift from extractive to regenerative systems. Applying course concepts that we've learned and continuing education awareness about these supply chain practices can help build solutions that are people-centered, profit-sustaining, and planet-conscious. Sustainable development is not a limitation. It is a needed transformation. Let's rethink how we source, produce, and consume to create supply chains that don't just deliver products, but protect our shared future. This is our appendix, and thank you so much. Together, we can create a greener and more sustainable future, and thank you for your commitment to protecting our planet.